He always feels like Tenitos will fall apart after 2 steps. Don't worry, leave it to me and Tenitos, Gray stated. Some men were about to retreat because they noticed that Gray is a knight, but their boss ordered them to pull Gray onto his horse. There are several opponents in front of him holding different weapons. Gray and Tenitos prepared themselves to attack. With the help of Tenitos, he strongly kicks these men, causing them to spew blood. Tenitos jumped and hit the other men left one by one. They were thrilled to assault these people, and in the end, all of them were passed out. There is a crowd watching them, and they said that gamblers have met their match this time. Paz is also watching the fight and were puzzled by how Gray fights with the gamblers. The cat was astonished at this point because Gray is a skilled fighter and has covertly given Tenitos several layers of enhancing magic. The following day, word spread that the Lord of Casfador would be facing off against a well-known figure from another country. Paz informed him that there was a tournament and that someone had paid a lot of money to employ participants while Gray and Paz were both present. Paz thinks that with Gray's skills, he can win this kind of competition with ease. According to Paz, if a person is not a knight, they cannot compete in this type of tournament. Thus Iron gave them the temporary title of knight. Gray wondered why it had to be a short-term solution. He aspires to have the title of a true knight, the one with the seal. On that day, Caspar said to Iron that he was concerned about the reputation of the Betcher family. Iron is talking to Caspar without calling him uncle, so Caspar said that she was rude, but Iron doesn't care as she only wants to win. And if it happens, she hopes that His Excellency the Count will also not go back on it. This tournament will consist of infantry and cavalry battles, and it will be fought in a turn-based format. Each side will send a knight to the battlefield, and the participant will be eliminated if he loses or surrenders. The winner must accept the challenge of the opposing knight. However, he will have the right to decide whether the next round will be a horse or foot battle. This will be repeated until all the knights on one side are eliminated and the winner is determined. If Count Caspar loses, he must swear allegiance to Lady Iron, and if Lady Iron loses, she must accept the engagement of the Count's son and be married at a later date. The battle is about to begin, and the host welcomed the knights on each side. There is a lot of Count Caspar's guard knight, while the attendant knights of Iron are only a few. People started to gossip and even bet that Iron will lose this battle. Caspar laughed after seeing the few knights of Iron, and for him, it was a sign of her stupidity. Iron hired mercenaries, and they are all waiting outside the arena. The tournament begins, and the fight is started. All these knights protect themselves with their shields while trying to use their lance against each opponent. In Game 1, Irene wins, and Caspar loses 1. The Iron Knights maintained their lead in the second round and triumphed, handing Caspar yet another defeat. In the third round, Caspar wins and Iron loses 1. Since Iron's unit is currently outnumbered, she gave Horus the order to go gather the mercenaries. Horus asked if Iron intended to use the mercenaries to wear out Caspar's troops, and Iron replied that because their manpower is limited, they must be placed wisely to counter the Count's troops' superior strength. Outside the tournament, mercenaries have been called and Gray is also there. Horus told them that the match is of the utmost importance to House Betcher, so they should help win the battle. Although they promised to try their best, mercenaries said they could not guarantee the outcome. Suddenly Gray is raising his hand and asks Horus to make him a knight. Hasn't the lady already granted you the title of a knight? Horus questioned. Gray insisted that he don't want a temporary title, he wanted to be a real knight with a seal. Horus was irritated because he believed Gray to be feeling ambitious. But Iron cut him off and told Gray that the title of the knight cannot be earned by merit and it cannot be awarded arbitrarily. Sir, if you can defeat 50 men for me in the tournament, I will give you the title of knight. Only if you can, Iron said. Gray and the cat were both surprised, and the cat even concludes that Iron is asking too much, so he told Gray to refuse, but unfortunately, Gray accepts the challenge. Well then, I'll be waiting to see you in action, Iron said and walk away with Horus. Gray was scolded by the cat for accepting Iron's offer, but Gray was overconfident that 50 people was a small number and that Tenitos could kick hundreds of them. To force Tenitos into the arena, Gray needs to defeat the knights in a foot war. Only the winner has the right to change the fighting method. Iron goes back to the tournament and Caspar didn't expect her to rely on the Red Scorpion mercenaries. No wonder the Betcher family is on the decline, Caspar said, and Iron answered, you have to wait a little longer to find out if it's on the decline. Paz has been called to the ring, and for him, it appears like the good days are over, so he needs to take the fight a little more seriously. Caspar was astounded to witness a skillful individual engaged in combat with his troop. Paz is engaging calmly with his sword, attacking Count's troop, and finally, he knocked down his opponent and the crowd was cheering and asks for another battle. Caspar wondered how Paz won 5 games in a row, and his subordinate answered that Paz is the leader of the Red Scorpion mercenaries. Since Caspar started to be irate, he ordered his man to put his skilled troop to fight against Paz as a consequence of going against him. While the audience is cheering and predicting Paz's battles, Count is sending a new knight and all of the people were shocked because it's a giant troop in front of Paz. Iron and Horus were puzzled after seeing it. "Buddy, let's have some fight," the giant stated with an evil look. Because of how big he is, Paz started to think to withdraw from the battle. Meanwhile, on Gray's side, he was trained by the cat on how to use the swords, but Gray can't even hold it, so the cat told him to give up. The battle of Paz versus Count's troops is about to begin. People gossip about the giant troop like a monster, and even the crowd feels scared. It's the night's duel between Count Caspar and Lady Iron's 12th match begin. The giant troop was very determined to hit Paz using his giant mace, and good thing that Paz was able to dodge it. He attacks using his sword, but his sword has been broken. The giant laughed at him and Paz started to rattle because he don't have any other weapon to use. The only thing he can do now is to dodge, but because of the strength of the giant troop, he was still hit and thrown to the corner with blood on his body. People were worried while Caspar is happy seeing Paz suffering in pain. "This is what happens when you go against me," Caspar stated. Paz still manages to get up even though he feels like his ribs have been fractured. The giant troop was still in front of him and was about to hit him once more, but he began to have a serious look and jumped through the giant holding his broken sword and hitting the giant in the eyes. The giant is screaming in agony and can't see anything, and at this moment, Paz seizes the chance and runs towards the giant to stab him. The giant was very mad, but he cannot do anything, and at this point, he was knocked out by Paz. Since Paz spitting blood, Iron decided to replace him. On the other hand, Gray is busy making a weapon since he can't use a sword. The cat reminded him to hurry before the tournament will end. The fight between Iron and Count Caspar went on until midnight. By now, Iron had suffered heavy losses, with 4 executed, 7 seriously wounded, and several surrendered, leaving only 6 able to fight. Although Count Caspar's side was not as strong as Iron's side, they relied on their numbers to suppress the other party, and still had a total of 61 people left. Paz is on the roof watching the battle and thinking how brave Iron's knight is, but their chance is too little at this moment since they only have 6 troops left. While he was thinking, Horus called him and was annoyed because half of Paz's mercenaries surrendered after half of the fight. "We're paid to fight for you. We never said we'd sell our lives," Paz answered. Horus can't do anything but calm himself and asked for Gray, but Paz doesn't know where he is, and he just answered that Gray must feed his cat. At this time, Count Caspar's team wins again, and there are only 5 people left on Lady Iron's side. Horus decided to fight against Count's troops, and when he was about to walk in the middle, he heard a sound behind him. When he turned around, he saw a gigantic gate carried by Gray. People were shocked and doesn't have any idea what was going on. Gray continued to carry the gigantic gate and asked how many people were left on Count Caspar's side. Count Caspar and Lady Iron were both perplexed, and Iron trusts Gray this time. "Hey uncle, what about Count Caspar's side?" Gray asked Horus, so heroes informed him that Caspar has over 50 knights left, so he can now go and fight. Gray was happy and now ready to go straight to the ring with his gigantic gate, and when he put the gate in front of the opponent, it seems like it has a big explosion and the opponent flew away. Gary climbed up to the top of the gigantic gate and stands straight while saying, "I'm ready. Let's start the match." The opponent remained speechless and immediately kneeled to surrender in front of Gray. For the next match, Count's troops still surrendered and were afraid that they might be beaten left, right, and center. Because of Gray, all of Count Caspar's troops don't want to fight against him. Count Caspar interrupted and said, "How dare you demolish the gate of the Count's palace and use it as a weapon? What a shame, I won't tolerate this ever." All the people also noticed that it was the gate of the Count's palace. Caspar is now trembling in anger, and his subordinate informed him that his knights would rather give up their titles than go to fight, so he suggests changing the mode of completion to cavalry fight. Caspar agreed to it as this is the only chance they have to win the tournament. Gray is very bored at this time because no one wants to fight with him. Caspar called him and said that he wants to see Gray's skills in cavalry. Gray was puzzled, and Caspar is interrupted by Iron, who points out that according to the tournament's regulations, the winner gets to choose how the following match will be played. Caspar warned her that if she refused to participate in the horse battle, his men would not fight and the competition would continue without them. Iron